Hello friends, and welcome to one more session of NITCO Talks. And today we have stalwarts, 4 stalwarts from all over India. We have Sanjay Dutt of Tata's, which is an all India brand, an all India company. We have Mohit Malhotra of Godrej, is again an iconic all India brand. There is Geetambar Anand, who's the king of North India. And we're only waiting for him to be all over India. And of course, our very own Baman Irani, who's the king in Western India.
Welcome local. I'm the local boy.
Welcome everybody to this session, and we look forward to an exciting talk. And as Baman said, dil se puchenge aur dil se jawab denge. My first question is to Mohit. Safety, social distancing, the new homes. What are the new amenities and value you feel will define the new normal in the real estate business? This is what I think everybody would want to know. In what direction is residential real estate going to go?
Thanks, Vivek, for the kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone who's joined on this call. It's a very tough time we are all going through, and COVID is going to completely, fundamentally change the consumer behavior. And the longer we stay in the lockdown, I would say the larger will be the impact in terms of changing consumer preferences. So I think there will be a couple of shifts which would happen from a customer perspective, and their expectation from product. So that we should all be cognizant of. It will also change fundamentally the way we do businesses. We have already seen a great shift on use of digital as a medium to sell, and I feel that digital will play a complementary role going forward in our sales process. I think labor shortages is something which we are all already witnessing or would soon experience. And again, I think there will be a greater acceleration towards adoption of technology in our industry for construction perspective. In terms of construction sites also, there will be a very, very large focus on safety, social distancing, hygiene, which anyways I think all the quality players are maintaining. But I think it will there will be a greater focus on that as well. And on macro trends, Vivek, I think what is going on already in our industry is a trend of consolidation. We have been in a cyclical downturn for almost 8 years now, and since 2017 we are seeing massive consolidation happening. The share of top 10 developers has more than doubled in the last 5 years, and today stands at around 10%, 11% of the pan-India market share. I feel, as we look ahead over the next 5-10 years, we will see a much larger consolidation and emergence of very large pan-India players in our industry. So overall, while we are facing short-term disruptions in our businesses, I fundamentally remain very positive and bullish about the prospects of our industry. And I feel once the COVID situation stabilizes, once people have a comfort in their jobs, in their businesses, we will see a very strong rebound in residential real estate sector.
Okay, that is great to hear. Baman, will you take it from here?
Sure. Hey guys, first of all, thank you all for being here. I mean, it's always a pleasure to interact with you big boys, right? So Sanjay, my first question to you, Tata Realty. Okay, so there was a statement we read a few days back that we would see TCS and most of these companies which are in the IT spaces do the work from home. But then we also read somewhere that, you know, commercial real estate will continue to grow. I mean, honestly, if I was to ask you, what is your views on commercial real estate in the country? What is your say?
Thank you, Boban. I believe commercial real estate, especially technology companies, which constitute almost 45% of the office demand in India, they've been actually working from home for last 15 years. First of all, the very nature of outsourcing itself is work from a different location than US or Europe. So if you can do business which is actually happening in US and outsources to India, why can't office be from home? So a lot of companies, I know one particular company which outsourced most of its work from home to the extent of 35,000 employees. And they reduced the requirement for commercial real estate 10, 15 years ago. At that time, we also lost call center business. And at that time, also requirement from 100 square feet to 75 square feet happened. So real estate demand by a company or a business has been coming down. However, new companies and new businesses getting launched in India enabled office demand to grow. And last year it was 47 million square feet net absorption, highest ever. Now, whether the COVID-19 situation will impact the office demand, the answer is yes. Whether artificial intelligence and work from home will affect the demand, the answer is yes. Whether it will wipe out the office demand, the answer is no. After 2 years of wait and watch and precautions by corporates, the demand for office will come back. So from 47 million last year, it may come down to 20, 25 million this year and may remain so around the same number next year. By then, the companies would have taken stock of the extent of damage to their business and they will bounce back. So I guess the dollar rupee situation is making India competitive still, so demand will still rise. And it will be natural to expect 40 million square feet demand for next 5 to 10 years, conservatively, in my opinion, Bowman, to answer your question.
And if I was to just push you a little further, all these Chinese companies or other companies operating in China, which are looking at coming to India right now, which part of the country will the commercial demand, if at all, be kind of taking off from this demand?
If you're referring to manufacturing companies, it's the 5 industrial states which will continue to dictate and demonstrate opportunities for these companies. And that includes Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Haryana, in my opinion. I know UP is making a big foray and many other states will also try and do it. But the port connectivity, the airport connectivity, the industrial policy, the ecosystem, the availability of manpower. If somebody is into ceramic business like Vivek is, availability of cheap gas, for example, to furnace at 1000 degree will be required. So all those characters of the state will actually define where it will go, but largely in these 5 or 6 states. Bowman.
Gitambar.
Yep.
You know, I know you as one of the most inspirational people I have met in my life, bigger than most of the gurus I have seen.
Ditto.
You've always been pretty forthright and, you know, very, very transparent about everything that you believe in. So I have a question for you. What will be the competitive advantage that smaller developers, you know, would have compared to all you big boys who get your funds for less than 8%, I guess? I don't know. So what I'm just saying,
not anymore.
The big thing. Well,
Yeah.
whatever. So Gitambar, what would you say would be your advice? How do you stay competitive with all the interest rates that, or rather, let's say the big boys getting money at a much cheaper rate?
Very, very, very apt question, Boman. And when we say big boys, we are talking about Godrej, Tata, and the corporates. We are not talking about Boman and myself, or we are not big boys anyway. But the distinct disadvantage we have today over the corporates who entered real estate is the rate at which they raise capital. And the difference is so huge and drastic. So what do? We we try to cut down our operational costs. B, we try to do in-house construction so that contractors' profits are not really doled out and we can do some saving there. Surprisingly, I don't know what the public perception is, but surprisingly, we don't even command a premium as these corporates do. And I'm, without any offense to anybody or any brand, I think the smaller players who've been in the business for decades, they know the art of churning out the product better. This is what I personally feel, because a lot of them have risen from ground up and they know construction, they know their construction. The disadvantage that the corporates, the big boys have, is that they have to outsource and depend on external contractors to do their construction. And of course, because the scale is so big, management at times does become an issue. And I'm speaking of the quality of delivery. So this is where we can, the smaller players, or let's say the unlisted players or the non-corporate ones, can actually leverage their product. They can focus on delivering better qualities within time frames. And in the long run, they can shake hands with the big boys, and we can both synergize our strengths. They get cheaper capital. We know how to build better, because let's face it, building and construction is not their core competence. Whereas in many of the smaller players, it is the core competence of the smaller developer to construct and build. A lot of people, a lot of developers in smaller locations in tier 2 cities, even some in tier 1 cities, are doing their own construction even today. So there is a strength there. But the weakness is cheaper capital. Over here, the strength is cheaper capital, but the weakness is execution. If there's a synergy, and Mohit said consolidation, I think consolidation, and Sanjay and I have been having a talk on this. Consolidation may not necessarily mean, Baman, that people who cannot do this business, let's say the smaller developers who are doing one project or two projects, actually come to a bigger developer who's doing 5 and consolidate with him. No, there could be another new consolidation in the offing, and that is where people like you and me actually shake hands with a Godrej or a Tata and say, okay, let's work together. Because that is where the opportunity is. See, Rustomjee is a great brand, and so is Godrej, so is Tata, so is XYZ. So imagine if there's a co-branding of Rustomjee and a Godrej and a Tata, the kind of advantages the entire package will get is unthinkable. Why can we not consolidate that way?
In a lighter vein, that would be Bawa Power, no? Godrej, Tata, Rustomjee coming together. So I think what Gitamber, what you're trying to say is that there would still be bespoke developers who know the local needs, markets, requirements, and then they would continue to function out there, and that would be their competitive advantage.
That's
and
right.
Coming together, which I'm going to post to Godrej, that is doing this so beautifully. So Mohit, you guys are, really, everything we read about you is with stars around it, and you've been doing fantastically well. The growth trajectory you have is like phenomenal. Blazing is the word. You guys are setting a blazing path for everybody. Tell me, what makes you so aggressive on the residential markets? And what are you seeing in the next 6 months, year, and then maybe longer?
Yeah, thanks, Bowman, for your kind words. You're right. We remain extremely bullish about the prospects of our sector. And while COVID has been a bit of a letdown for all of us, in the longer term or the medium term prospects remain extremely positive and strong. I think for us, the reason we remain very bullish is because there is a unique opportunity which we feel today in this sector. There are not many people today who are buying land. So we are ability to acquire land at a fairly good prices today. And in the long run, that will give us a lot of competitive advantage in the market. The cost of capital, both debt and also equity, is very low. We are personally as a company sitting on more than 2,400 crores of cash balance today, which we want to use it for further acquisitions and partnerships. The third thing which is very important for us is, and I would say the number one and number two and number three priority for us as a company has always been our consumer. And if you have a very strong connect with our customer, sales are a byproduct of it. I always feel sale is an outcome of a good product and a deep understanding of consumer needs. So we have a disproportionate focus on understanding customers, designing product around their needs, pricing it appropriately, and of course delivering on a high quality product for our customer within timelines. And that because we are doing those things right, the customers have come back and shown faith in buying more of our product. So we have seen a very strong sales performance. And given our strong sales performance, it gives us further, I would say, impetus and encouragement to acquire more, opportunities. And that is how the positive cycle is going on. And fundamentally, we as an organization, for last 30 years have only believed in partnership model. So if you see our trajectory over the years, almost 90% of our portfolio is, partnerships, joint ventures. And I feel, that is a right way for any organization to grow. And I completely agree with Pitambar that, there are very, very strong, unique strengths which local players bring on table. And there are good strengths which we bring on table. And, partnerships are the right way to move in this country. So overall, Bowman, remain extremely bullish about the prospects of our industry. I think we are all ignoring the fact that, we will have a huge demand surge in our sector as affordability is at an all-time high. So, we are following a bit of a counter-cyclical strategy in the sector today, and remain quite committed.
Quite true, quite true. I mean, you are seeing things that actually sometimes we are all scratching our head and wondering, what is it that we are missing out on? So coming to you again, Sanjay, are you looking at this entire COVID as a survive, then revive, and then thrive kind of environment, or are you just looking at jumping straight and, using your abilities to just grow and rapidly increase your footprint across the country?
So Bowman, on residential, we're looking to survive, revive and thrive. On commercial, we're looking to leapfrog our business because we believe exactly the way Mohit explained, opportunities which earlier did not exist. So it's a combination of these two strategies. We already have a very large portfolio on residential. So for no need for us to commit more. We're targeting 14 to 15,000 crores worth of inventory in next few years. That's sufficient from a commitment point of view. To answer earlier question, when Pitambar very rightfully said the combination of two kind of developers coming together, that's where we believe he's right. But I also believe corporate developers who expanded too much and too fast and too soon are moving towards less number of cities. So more sharper focus of business and trying to simultaneously build a team to have more local expertise. Just the way I think the local developer is trying to build a credibility and a brand and a corporate environment to actually bring the strengths that corporate developers do have. And they will, I have no doubt that even local developers will have same access to capital and cost of capital will be as low as we do. Because it's not the size and the pan-India coverage, it's the credibility that the institution is looking for. So I believe the gap between the two will narrow as next 2-3 years go by. And nobody knows how the markets will be, but I believe I've always seen this country bounce. If I look back in the last 25 years, every time we had a major setback, we may have taken time in some cases, but we have bounced. So if you stay committed, you will benefit from the market.
That's really encouraging, man, to hear that, cost of capital will be competitive in cost of capital compared to those with larger balance sheets. Pitambar, very quickly, talking about the labor shortages that one sees. I know you do a lot of your, not all, not a lot, all your construction yourself. What is your view with regards to going forward, problems that you foresee in construction or meeting timelines, or do you see that there's a problem?
Pavan, actually क्या है, this is a jolt that has come, it's जो labor वापस गई है अपने घर में, they don't have employment over there, so be sure they're going to come back. They're insecure, they're not getting employment here, they don't know whether the disease is going to pan out in a short while or a longer while. Their people are at home, they're worried about their people are worried about them, so immediately they wanted to go back home. And when the entire transportation system was shut down, they panicked even more. But be sure, and I've spoken to a lot of our people who we had 5,000 laborers at our sites who we didn't let go, and we were looking after them. They said, sir, we don't want to stay at home. We want to go there and meet our people once, and then we have to come back because वहाँ हमारे पास कोई रोजी रोटी का कोई इंतजाम नहीं है. So they have to come back. They will come back. More so, I wanted to comment on the COVID situation changing the demand. And I have had this discussion with various stakeholders and with you also, Bhavan, with Sanjay also. After the COVID happening and the lockdown happening and people having to stay at home, the one thing that has emerged in the buyer is you must own your own house. Because rental housing, co-living, shared living, all this is going to, for a while, it's not going to work out. I know friends in Mumbai who told me, that they were tenants in certain societies, and when they came back from abroad, they had this stamp on their hands, and they weren't allowed into the society again because they were not owners. So suddenly this insecurity of not owning your own roof over your head has sunk in deep in most of the buyers' minds. And let me tell you, and our inquiries have started coming forth much more aggressively ever since we started going out to the market to sell. The only insecurity of the buyer today is the security of his job and the security of his pay scale. When I say pay scale, वो मतलब कितना cut होगा, कितना ही होगा. So should he take a home loan? Should she take a home loan? If so, will he or she be able to service the home loan? So we have been speaking to government regularly to come up with a product where the home buyer can be given a comfort for 2 years. Previously we guys used to subvent the EMIs, which I say will not be doable today by the developer. It has to be done by the HFC, by the housing finance company. They have to innovate and come out with a product wherein they give comfort to the home buyer that you don't pay your EMI or interest for 2 years. We will fund it maybe after 2 years when the market stabilizes. Because I'm telling you this, and I think all of us heard the Prime Minister yesterday, I'm very bullish about the next few years because the kind of message that he conveyed was very, very simple. जो काम करने के लायक है, जो काम करना चाहता है, हम उसको सपोर्ट करेंगे. खूब काम करो, काम करने की कोई कमी नहीं है, चाहे आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में हैं, आप रियल एस्टेट में हैं, आप किसी चीज में भी हैं, आप काम करो. We'll start hearing it from today. I am very, very hopeful. There'll be lots of measures to enable ease of doing business. Liquidity may not come instantly. We may not get funds like Sanjay and Mohit at 6 to 8%. We can always hope that it will happen sooner than later. But imagine if Baman, you and I were to get money, 2,400 crores, 5,000 crores at 6 to 8%, we would be delivering well too. We would be very bullish about the business as well too. What has killed us is the 18 IRR. It has actually, we have been working for the institutions, and we had our compulsions, we had ambition, we wanted to buy land, and we were funded at very high IRRs, and we chose to borrow money at that price. But that is what actually today has deterred us from aggressive expansion or aggressive expansion only of our businesses. So if this cost were to come down, and government has been told this by industry time and again, and yesterday we had a very, very productive call with the industries minister in Uttar Pradesh, and we told him, like in Noida, the IRRs on land, they go and multiply to 19. It's ridiculous. How can a developer service an IRR of 19 on a land payment? So they understood, and they said, we will look at rationalizing the interest rates even there. So if the institutions and your urban local bodies where we have statutory payments to make, all these interest costs are rationalized, I think people who know this business, who have delivered in the past, who got a good track record, they've got happy customers, I think they will do very well.
Well, we have the FM coming on at 4 o'clock, and hopefully there'll be some announcements for real estate. Maybe not just yet. Maybe in the slew of releases that she gives, because I don't think it's possible at one go to talk about 3 lakh crores. So, Mohit, coming back to you, I'm going to shift it a little bit from money and go into the digital experience. You guys have been doing phenomenally well, like it has been mentioned with regards to sales. What is it in terms of digital marketing that we all as developers should start getting used to and moving ahead with? What's worked for you?
So yeah, we were also surprised with the level of sales which we achieved through digital channels, because before COVID, if somebody would have said that you can sell a flat completely digitally, it would have sounded quite absurd. But consumer behaviors change quite fast, as we have seen. See, many things, Bowman, which works, if you're working on these things. But essentially, if I have to give you a big picture, essentially you have to provide this, so the digital experience of buying home today, has to be as close as possible to you physically seeing the product. Of course, the look and feel is always missing in a digital product, but as close as possible, through the use of VR, providing, as much, support through digital and, videos and, some of the technology which is available, we could provide it. Thankfully, what had happened is, we had started the digitization of sales process almost 1.5 years back. So all our properties, all our backend were digitized. And actually from December of last year, we actually had our first digital launch in the country, which the entire backend was digital. Of course, the front end still remained, the regular way, but the entire process was digitized. So what happened was that when COVID happened, the backend was already ready, and the front end was replaced by some of these mediums like Zoom or MS Teams and all. But I was actually, I have gone through this myself as a consumer, and it is actually pretty, it's quite good, because if you are buying a property outside of your hometown, it gives you a very, very good experience digitally. And we have seen a lot of sales in digital actually happening in international channel, where anyways consumers were not, visiting the flats and buying it offline. And I would say there is a mix of end users and also a mix of investors. I think there are investors today who have started to look at real estate as an alternate investment class, and probably could be engaging in the digital medium. Having said that, I think in the long run, we will obviously have, nothing can replace coming into the site, visiting the sample flat, visiting the experience center. But I would say 90% of process can be digitized, and that last 10% could remain, the brick and mortar experience. But we are going for a very strong push on that front.
Great to hear. So with Gitambar as my president at Credai, I remember we had carried out a lot of activities for upping the image of, let's say, real estate as an asset, upping the image of real estate developers as a community that could add value to the GDP. I'm going to pose this question, Gitambar, if you're okay, just to Mohit and Sanjay. Sanjay, you first. What are the things in your mind that we need to do short-term, long-term, to improve the overall interest in real estate and also the image of real estate developers? And you guys can both take a minute and a half to kind of say that.
Sure. Bhavan, I'll take it first. I believe, in last 2-3 years, we've gone through this choppy ride. Lot of people, because capital is fungible, it moves sometimes to equity, commodities, or real estate, and we saw capital flight from investors and moving to equity markets. I believe a lot of customers are already thinking the other way right now. So, at various stages of economic cycle and property cycle, they'll be back and forth for always. But right now we are in receiving end. Whether they are NRIs, whether they are investors, they're looking at the real tangible safety of real estate. Second, I think thanks to this COVID situation, which has forced everybody to go through the digital experience. I mean, even many reluctants who always had technology available at their desk, they never used webinar, they never used video conferencing facility. They wanted to go personally, take a flight, see it, and experience it. I think we've taken a call, and we all have experienced it. So we have overcome our fears and concerns. So embracing the technology now will be on an accelerated mode. So if we put these 2-3 things together, and the most important, you see, earlier the space was crowded. Too many players, too much competition, everything excessive. The decision making of a buyer was difficult. He or she had to analyze a lot more stuff. Today, any buyer has to filter only 3-4 things: reputed developer, ready, right pricing, online experience. The men from the boys have been separated. The picture out front in front of you is quite clear. And therefore, if you are one of those that figure in that picture, I think you cracked the business model. And this, by the way, is not limited and confined to only customers. How about lenders? Do lenders see you in that light? Do analysts at stock exchange see you in that light? Do contractors and vendors who do business, do they find you fair in dealings? So they can actually give you a better, contract, more competitive, because they know that the moment they send the invoice to you, the payment will come in 7 days, and they'll actually prefer you in their portfolio of things. I've met a lot of contractors, Bowman, who are giving me such competitive rates, which are as good as we doing contracting ourselves. 2,400 rupees warm shell with a high side AC in a commercial building. It's not bad. 17 to 1800 for a 14 to 20 story tower in Resi is not bad. So I think if you figure these things out and you clear the air, you would actually have far more and better business.
Interesting. Mohit, you have any views on this?
Yeah, I think a couple of points. I personally feel, mutual funds have done a fabulous job in advertising their business in a very, very positive way. Every single day you get an ad saying mutual fund acha hai, do SIPs. There is every alternate day you get an SMS saying why you should invest in stock market and mutual funds, and how it is far better from any other asset class. So I think they have done a fabulous job as an industry on advertising, which all of us now need to start thinking about how we can also bring the benefits of real estate investment as a consolidated industry together to our customers. I think the other aspects, and these are honestly, some of the questions are not something which any one of us can individually solve. It would need a government intervention, and of course, all of us collectively. But if you look at, the entry and the exit loads on a real estate investment are, completely crazy. I don't understand why should somebody pay, 6% stamp duty for a residential home, say costing 1 crore, whereas if you buy the same on a stock market, same equity, I don't know what is the number, but it is actually insignificant. So I don't even remember that number. But somewhere I think, that some of these things are obviously, historical, very difficult to change. But from a customer, from an investor perspective, these entry loads are, something which has to be solved. And the third issue again is, is there a way we can create an exchange to generate liquidity in the product? some kind of real estate exchange with some agency kind of classifying the the product available into an ABC or a triple, all those way which how the papers are traded on debt. But this is honestly, very blue sky thinking. You can ignore it as maybe something which is highly impractical. But one day I feel that during my lifetime, I hope that this will be resolved. And, if we can bring the liquidity, in fact, resolve the liquidity or illiquidity of the real estate asset class, some of these can be a big positive. I personally feel, my parents, all our elders have really made a lot of money through real estate asset classes and remain extremely bullish. Of course, the last few years have been a downturn, so everybody is looking at the negative side today. And then suddenly after 5 years, people who have invested today would look very intelligent. So this is all a cyclical business, but if fundamentally some of these issues can be resolved by all of us collectively along with the relevant government, I think it could be a game changer.
So, well, the government has always behaved in ways where, sometimes they've also been opportunistic, and that's how the 5-6%, etc. And then with cesses, etc. keeps rising. I want to come to this question a little later, but Gitambar, first for you. If let's say you get an opportunity and you have 1,000 crores of your own equity, for you two guys, I'll say 10,000. Gitambar, 1,000 crores of your own equity. Please tell me, what is it that, where will you look and what all will you do? What are the areas that will interest you, and, where will you put the money?
ऐसे कैसे? Why 10,000 to them? Why 1,000 to me? ऐसे कैसे होता है यार?
नहीं तो वो मैं ऐसे मेरे मन में बोल रहा हूँ यार, वो तो 200 करोड़ रुपए है वो. अच्छा छोड़ दे यार, सबको 1,000 करोड़ रुपए देते हैं.
हमारी कॉस्ट ज्यादा होती है ना गितांबर, इसलिए.
अच्छा, हमारी कॉस्ट ज्यादा होती है यार.
No, but
So,
Gitambar,
if I were to, it's a very, very juicy question, and I'll take my time to get a slog shot. 25% of that money I would definitely use to repay my expensive debt. 25% of that money I would put into my projects which are going on because they need liquidity today. Another 25 I would put into some new businesses. My new businesses, I'm thinking of like a business to revive a stalled project. So we have actually entered into 2 or 3 projects where the projects have stopped, the developers given up. The home buyers are there, they're willing to support us and say, okay, you come in and put in some money and let's start it, and we'll start giving our installments. So we have created a new vertical, Baman. And I think there's a huge opportunity for a fee because, we have an army of people. In our company, we employ on rolls 4,000 people, out of which 2,200 are engineers. So we have this huge army plus laborers, and we have, when work is at its peak, we employ about 15,000 laborers across our sites. So we have this army which can actually enter into a stalled project, but the only limitation is we don't have the money. So I would put this equity into a new business such as this, because the opportunity of reviving stalled projects in the country is huge. And there are many, many pained home buyers who are, for whatever reason, the project is stalled. I will not go into the details, but there are many, many home buyers who are waiting for some such rescue operation to come through to their project so that they can get an entry into their house. So I see this as a huge opportunity. And I would put 25% of my equity over there. The last remaining 25%, and we have started, like I said, these are new businesses. We have started venturing into tier 3 and tier 4 towns also. Now, tier 3, tier 4 towns have this concept of a kacha colony. They don't have a structured real estate development. And there, the Prime Minister has said this numerous times in his speech, the demand is 4 crore units across the country. 4 crore units, you can do a cookie cutter model, but you can only do it if you cannot outsource the construction to an L&T, because over there, it's not an FSI game. It's not like I have so much FSI, I'll bid so much. It's not like that, because the psyche of the buyer in smaller towns is different. He wants ownership of his land. He wants a product where he can expand the product tomorrow, maybe put in 2 more rooms. So we are looking at that. We've done it in 3 locations, in tier 4 locations around UP, in Bulandshahr, Moradabad, Bareilly. And I want to explore that very aggressively. So I would put 25% of that equity in that business, because that is a 10 to 12 year business. churning out those homes in those locations. The demand is endless. And now, with industrial activity and manufacturing getting a boost from the government, my industrial worker needs something like that. He needs a product like that, my blue collar worker. And I would definitely be a first mover. And let me tell you this, our smaller developers who we think are very small and they're not, wo kahan karenge kuch, I know at least 20 to 25 such smaller developers in smaller towns who are doing only this. Look at the innovation. And they are doing structured Naksha Pass wala development, which has got a completion certificate, and they're making better money than you and me, Baman. But it's only, the only thing that is limiting them is scale. So we can consolidate over there and we can go over there. So this is one business I'm hugely excited about. So that's how I would split my 1,000 crores. If you've got more coming, I'm open to it. No problem.
As soon as it comes, we'll do something together. Sanjay, what would you look at?
We have 6 million square feet under construction, and we have 3 million square feet lined up in commercial to start. So we're going to touch by the end of the year 9 million square feet. I would put this money immediately to use to do all future phases so that we can accelerate the development, because we are convinced that there are a lot of projects which are stuck and launches have come down, and there is an opportunity for us to liquidate our inventory faster by building quickly and faster. So we're quite committed. We have 3 projects coming up in Mumbai in next 6 to 8 months. So hoping now that they will also get launched, and then we have commercial properties across. So absolutely committed to it.
Mohit?
Mohit doesn't need money. Neither does Sanjay.
Yeah, I think, with God's grace, we raise money on time. So we are sitting on a good amount of money. But we want to, Bowman, one thing I've learned is that when you have lots of money, you have to be more disciplined. So that's when the real danger is. So, we very clearly articulated our strategy actually at 80 years back, if you will be surprised. We have stuck to it for last 8 years. And we keep questioning whether we should change it, but every time, sometimes we come back and realize that, we should stick to it. So we will continue to remain bullish on the top 4 metros, which we have been working over the last many years now. Invest capital there. We would not venture into any other asset class at this stage apart from residential. So we understand so many options are available, but we are very focused on residential. And the third is, there are many opportunities which come up the way, but we are very clear that we want to just be focusing on greenfield projects. And within the greenfield projects, we have a very strict investment criteria, which a project has to fulfill before money goes out. So I think extremely, continue what we are doing, but I think the focus has to be even more sharper if you have too much of money in the bank.
So, Gitambar spoke about affordable housing in a way, right? What would you two look at? Sanjay, would you look at high end? Would you look at, give me a demarcation. Also, other types of development. Mohit has said only residential. Would you look at industrial? I mean, warehousing? Would you look at affordable? Would you look at commercial spaces? I think you did mention some part of commercial, but which
So Bhavan, clearly we're going to scale commercial, definitely. Secondly, I think we were the pioneers to come out with the first affordable brand across the country. And it was a very large portfolio, and it still is a very large portfolio for us. I'm kind of more keen to do projects in the city because that is what was missing in our portfolio. So my focus is to really leverage the strength of the brand by differentiating a product in the city and doing micro market analysis. What happens, you see, we based our strategies on cities. I think we need to base our strategies on micro market, because the micro markets behave very differently. And so we believe Andheri, Chembur, and the Thane district, we will continue to focus in Mumbai. Likewise in Bangalore, in the North Bangalore, we'll continue to focus. Chennai, perhaps we will not do too much scale in residential, but the larger share of our investment would roam around between NCR, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and more in the city than outer periphery, except being we have a very large 192 acres in Bangalore near the airport, where we're doing a large integrated mixed-use development, close to about 16 million square feet. So that over a period of time we will do. So that right now that's the focus. We already had shopping centers, Bowman, but I thought we are doing too many things. So I sold my shopping centers, and I sold it thankfully at the right time, because I would have suffered huge losses right now. I think it's a good business to be in, but we don't want to be holding the asset. We want to build the asset and transfer the ownership. Warehousing logistics, I felt that I would rather remain right now in 100 rupees per square feet market rather than 30 rupees per square feet market in industrial. So once I scale the office at the right point of time, we'll look at warehousing industrial, because we like B2B business. We think it has its own advantages. So it creates annuity. So for example, right now we have a very handsome annuity business through leased commercial portfolio, and we'd like to grow on that.
Pitambar, any plans of coming to Mumbai? Mute, you're mute. तेरी आवाज मुंबई वाले सुनना चाहते हैं.
तूने बुलाया मुंबई तो मैं I have come to Mumbai, and you know it. We've signed our first project over there. It's an affordable housing project in partnership with HDFC Capital, where 20% equity is held by HDFC. It's a joint venture, and we are. Its location is in Powai, and we are looking at an affordable segment. We want to understand the Mumbai market, and we'll take all your help from Baman, and you better help.
Always, sir, always.
And Mohit
Always.
and Sanjay. So yes, we have plans of coming to Mumbai.
Lovely.
Mumbai is not really an affordable housing location. Mumbai, Hiranandani is 40 to 45,000 a square foot.
No, so that is, see, Vivek, this is the differentiator. Affordability, the definition as per the Deepak Parekh committee is 4 times your gross annual income. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you make a 30 lakh rupee house in a Powai. Right? Hello. So affordability is what it actually is a multiplier of your gross annual income. And if you give the right product at a better price than what is available, and you give a better product and you give it quicker, then I feel you have an advantage over what is available in the market. But I don't want to comment too soon. Why I say affordable is we are just getting into the 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom format, which is, it's a low-hanging sweet spot for the buyers, and it's not too much of a risk for us. So coming from the north, I was quite taken aback कि इतने छोटे घर क्यों बनाए हम, and then I realized कि this is Mumbai. You have to think differently. So that is why I feel we can do affordable housing as per Mumbai standards in Mumbai.
And what's the size of?
Okay.
I will let you know, Vivek.
Guys, before we go further, I'd like some kind of understanding out here. Gitambar, Sanjay, and Mohit, you were asked by the FM, what are the 2 things that you think are needed from the government for you as an industry? And then RBI asked you the same question. And then finally, Housing Minister asked you the same question. What would you say or ask is 1 or 2 things, no more?
You want me to, you let Sanjay go first?
I think, so since we can only ask the central government in this case, although I feel state governments have to do much larger role that Chennai, for example, they made stamp duty and registration free or less. I think there are a lot of tax related issues with our sector. So input credit, tax to buyers for second home, third home, capital gains. The government should really look at it, because that will create demand. So any such tax reform, policy reforms is once I will ask. I've already asked the government through FICCI and through NAREDCO to open FDI, ready to move inventory, which the government is considering. I think they will, and that will help monetize the inventory. I think these 2, if I just stay to it, so demand and a little bit of relief on capital, which the government seems to have addressed. But my larger focus would be that we should ask this question to the state governments. How can they make a difference to the real estate as a sector? Thank you.
Mohit?
Yeah, I think I will stick with what Sanjay is saying. Anything which can revive the demand in the sector is the right thing to do. So whether it is, tax ops on buying second homes or, stamp duty registration reliefs, I think these are very positive steps. And of course, you're aware, Bowman, on Mumbai, the kind of taxes we pay on various approval related charges. I think, somebody should look holistically on if a consumer pays 100 rupees to a developer, what percentage of that money actually goes in, if you accumulate all the various taxes which we pay to government, what is that number holistically? Because piecemeal wise, it looks small, but if you take a total of it, it could be a very, very large number. And I think that needs to be rationalized.
So I can tell you that number. Actually, as per a study we had done, especially for Mumbai, for every 100 rupees that a consumer pays to buy his apartment, Gitambar, you're coming to Mumbai, so hear this. The consumer is paying anywhere between 36 and 42 rupees. Okay. And this is if the project goes through its timelines, and in Mumbai, a quick development could be anywhere between 4 to 5 years. Okay. So this is what charges you pay, interest, etc. on top of it, plus all your compliance costs. Now with RERA holding 70% of the money, it is very steep. And Sanjay, you're right. The state government has to give a lot more. We've been kind of knocking with CREDAI, on the doors of the government. And earlier the problem was we were the ones asking and nobody else was, so they weren't really listening. And now everybody is asking. So really, I don't know where we stand in that queue. But with voices like you and Mohit and having the entire brand weight behind us, I think it will help. More and more people need to say the same thing. That's why I asked the question. Gitambar, over to you. What would you ask?
Definitely more for the consumer. He should get more deductions. That 1.5 should be translated to 5. It should be bumped up to 5 lakh deduction from his income per annum out of the interest he or she pays. Definitely 5 lakhs per year.
5 se kya
The
hoga?
interest set off.
Interest set off. क्यों उसका loan इतना है ना बमन देखो, for a 80 lakh rupee loan, it at 8% your entire interest payout in a year is 6.4 lakhs. So you should get a deduction of 4 lakh rupees. हम ये कह रहे हैं.
Can I just say something?
हाँ.
Gitambar, my understanding is, we will attract, yes, a larger volume of buyers, but in terms of the value buyers, which takes place, let's say Bombay, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, all these higher end markets, which really become the heavyweights of purchase. Why not at least propose 25? Yeah.
So 20. I mean, we can propose whatever.
I agree.
Whatever is acceptable to the government is what is going to prevail. We can ask for something.
I believe this is the time to ask, and we should miss this opportunity.
We can do that. And the other thing which I just said in the beginning of the discussion was that for 2 years, the government, the RBI should allow HFCs to somehow come up with a product which enables the home buyer not to pay an interest or EMI for 2 years. But you needn't convey the apartment in their names. If it's under construction anyway, you don't have to do that. So if after 2 years, if they're not able to pay their interest or EMI, then they just exit once this resale happens, and the HFC just brings in another, just shifts the loan to another customer. So this is one thing which we have proposed, and it's a very, very unique product. And if it happens, it will give a huge comfort to your home buyer, because if you don't have to pay interest or EMIs for 2 years, it's a big thing. So for us, what we need, Baman, is definitely a rationalization of the GST rates.
Yeah.
We also said we need an option to opt either for the without ITC rate or with ITC rate.
Absolutely.
And a very important thing which affects our cash flows is that whenever you raise an invoice for GST, you become liable to pay GST, whether the customer pays that to you or not. So this should change. So we've asked the government for this. And most important is liquidity. We have told government that we should get at least, you can't hear me?
I can hear you.
So we've told government that we should be allowed liquidity of our existing debt of another 10 to 20%, depending on a case-to-case scenario, which comes at an MCLR. That rate should be a 7 to 8% rate, because this is the last mile kind of liquidity, or it's liquidity required to start work after the lockdown. Because once the lockdown happened, the customers stop paying their installments. They'll only start paying once the work starts. And Mohit has come up with a 1090 scheme that kills us even more. So we need that liquidity. So this is what we've asked the government. So we must definitely have this if we are to become operational again. And government for once has acknowledged that, you know, real estate drives manufacturing. Real estate drives employment, because we employ 5.5 crore people. 5 people to a family, 25 crore people are getting their livelihood from real estate and construction. So for the first time, it has been accepted, acknowledged by government that after agriculture, real estate and construction have to be propped up.
No, I agree with you entirely. Vivek, I would say that, you know, compile these asks, and we'll try and put it across more effectively in the future. Mohit, there's a question for you from my friend Dharmesh Chadda in Mumbai. He says, why are you only looking at greenfield if you're so partnership driven? Why don't you look at redevelopments?
No, we are looking at redevelopment. You know, what I meant, greenfield was, you know, projects which are stalled under construction. Those are something we are not looking right now, but we are actively looking at, you know, all redevelopment projects, including SRA, you know, 33/7. So redevelopment, of course, is a huge focus in Mumbai.
Well, that's good news. Dharmesh, news for you. More partnerships happening. Vivek, any questions, or do you want to open it up to some of the audience as well?
Yeah, so I've been getting some questions. So I'll read out a couple of questions. Something on Pratyush Panda has asked, how do you place affordable, premium and luxury housing in short-term and long-term prospects? Which particular sector will thrive in short-term and which one in long-term? Who would take that?
Who do you want to answer that? Someone, you answer that.
I'm the moderator today, boys. I get to answer.
So I'll take a shot. So my estimate would be, you see, a premium housing, first and foremost, a premium housing should be used for self-use. Don't think that, you know, I'm buying this, it'll appreciate a hell of a lot, and then maybe I can make money out of it, because already you're entering at a very high level. So what is the sweet spot? The sweet spot is the mid-income housing. And if the mid-income housing is starting in a good location, which is going to be popular tomorrow, and you know the developer has got a good track record and will develop a good product, which is going to have a lot of demand from end users, then be sure that product will 100% appreciate in the long run. So that is where I feel you should put your money. It's lesser money if you're an investor. And if you're an end user, then of course you have the spectrum, you can invest anywhere.
Great. And the other thing a lot of people are asking is pricing. They're saying, do we expect some price rationalization in the short term? Will developers rush to liquidate inventory at hand?
Who do you want answering that?
But I think Mohit and Sanjay will not definitely liquidate their inventory. Neither will most developers, because anyway we are sitting on a very thin margin where there's no scope to reduce further. So we don't want to go bankrupt. I don't see developers reducing prices any further just because of the situation. In fact, from here on, because of the situation that we are in, we have incurred costs and the work is at a standstill. So if anything, we'll, our product is costing more than it was before. So if there's no scope to reduce, we would definitely like to increase prices.
And just to add to that, I think Mohit has made a statement also, I think it featured in the Economic Times, saying that prices might actually take a different turn. But Vivek, it's very important that everybody understands that we need to move away from this price and move towards value. You know, real estate happens to be one of those things when someone comes to buy a home, he's hoping to buy it at $1, and then the moment he's bought it, he wants it to become $10. You know, he wants to feel super smart with this one investment. I mean, go play in the stock market if you want to feel so smart. But in real estate, I'm sorry guys, I'm taking a little bit of your whatever question. But I would say everybody needs to focus on value and that is where they will get long-term, like Mohit said, his parents and grandparents have earned a lot of money through real estate. I think this is where the key is. People have been starting focusing on price, and that's how they've been, well, ruining things for themselves.
The other thing, some are asking, why are we all promoting purchase of flats and not encouraging rental or getting investors to buy and rent, put the flats on rent? If somebody can answer that, maybe Sanjay can answer that.
I believe there will be a time that at least in major commercial districts of Indian cities, where the yields will touch 3 to 5%, and because commercial yields are also moving south towards 5 or 6%, and the interest rates will also be lower in the times to come, they're still high, that the rationale to own a yield play in residential will be very strong. Till such time, I don't think there is a merit in getting into this, but I see a distant future where they may actually be possible.
Okay, I think we'll do a last question or two. 2015, approximately 3 lakh units were selling in top 8 cities in India in a year, which is now 2 lakh units with 20% reduced flat sizes. Our GDP has grown, job growth has happened. Why has resi real estate demand reduced so significantly? Is this correct? Mohit, would you like to take this?
Yeah, without commenting on the authenticity of the data, I think the big picture directionally it is correct. If you look at the top 7 cities in the country, the demand has come down by more than 40% since the peak in 2012. So that is correct. And I think my hypothesis, which I had discussed in other forum, was the same, that if you look at, we've been in 8 years of down cycle. While the economy actually was growing at 5 to 7% during that period of time, if you look at the prices in most cities, either prices have come down or remain stagnant. But if you adjust for inflation, the prices are actually really come down. If you adjust for the income growth of people and the adjustment on prices, the affordability is at an all-time high. The interest rate, the repo rate is at 4.4%, which is the historic low for this country. So fundamentally, all the parameters are in place for the revival to happen. Now, of course, COVID came in and there was a shock to the economy, to the confidence of people, their own jobs, etc. But I think once this thing stabilize, I remain quite bullish that it will be a very fast turnaround. And of course, on the other side, we are seeing the supply is consistently coming down. So all these parameters are clearly pointing in one direction. And we are a cyclical industry. So when you are in a negative cycle, it looks as if there's no end to it. And the same happens when it is on a positive side. But I feel things have got to a really dark place, and from here on, we will see a bright future.
Wait, I'm surprised that.
No, okay. Let Sanjay go.
Very quickly, without taking too much time, a few other things. One, in the earlier days, there were more investors and speculators beside end users. So obviously, investors, speculators went out. Second, while the a lot of people lost value, so obviously there was resistance, so they went to other asset classes. That's why investors lost. I think they are coming back, and I think NRI's interest is also coming back. So third, some of the economy drivers, the sectors were also going through cyclical trends. So banking, financial services, telecom, IT, while the real estate cycle was going through, they also added to it. So it had, for the first time in my life, I saw all graphs pointing in one direction. Normally you see the opposites. the only graph which was pointing upward was commercial and warehousing and logistics. So I think that was another reason, which I believe, what Mohit said just now, it is now far more compelling and attractive for any buyer stroke end user investor to actually return and take advantage.
I want to make a point, Vivek. By the way, for all of y'all, as a thank you, there's one of our participants who's inviting y'all to Lucknow. He's posted a question 29 times to say, why aren't you guys coming to Lucknow? That is to all three of you. So you guys should take it up. Ankit
Definitely.
Mishra, contact them and they'll all be keen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make one point that we see that demand for tiles has been growing at a compound rate of 15% in most markets. So there is real estate getting developed in some sort of a way all over the country. So I don't know whether it is actually going down.
I just want to add something to that. You see, there was not a reduction in demand, there was a reduction in offtake for various reasons. And also understand that after the global financial crisis in 2010 to 2014, the supply which we had before that time was at least tenfold. So all of a sudden there was a glut in the market for property. There was a aspiration to buy, but the demand was there. It was latent, but the offtake was very low. So they had this multiple choice of properties, and then the impression that where the rates going, they're not going skyward. So we'll buy when it's ready. There were bad stories. So all of this put together reduced the offtake. The demand is there even today.
Right. Okay, last question, guys. This is from Jamshed Banaji. Climate change is the next apocalypse. What will be the special efforts that developers will take to reduce the carbon footprint and make this world a better place to live? Architect Jamshed Banaji.
Choose someone to answer it, Vivek.
You have to.
I think Mohit has to answer it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. All of us have to be socially responsible to the climate, and I think it's a wake-up call for the world on how, if you don't listen to nature, what can be the effect of nature on us. Just to put things in perspective, all our projects are actually, sustainable. All our projects are green certified. Between gold, platinum, and some in silver category, but 100% of the projects are green certified. There's a lot of focus on creating sustainable developments, Vivek. Just to give you a perspective, we are doing a project called Godrej Aqua in Bangalore, where we are looking at how we can reuse the water and conserve water in the development. So that we become water sustainable. We could achieve 75% of our goal there. Our township in Ahmedabad is a green certified township, one of the few in the world. Clinton green certified. So all the work which we are doing, and I think most of the large developers, have a very conscious development on sustainability. But I would like Gitambar and Sanjay to also add on to this.
So thank you, Mohit, and very much in tune with what Mohit has said. You see, anyway, as per the environment MOEF clearance norms, we have to do a lot of things which contribute to what your question was. We will definitely reduce the carbon footprint by adhering to these norms. But now, just to stay in the race and to stay competitive, we have to aim towards a gold or a platinum rating in all projects. So when that happens, you automatically end up reducing carbon footprint. But if you were to ask me, we're using fly ash bricks, we don't use any clay bricks anymore, wherever we are not doing a form finish construction. These are small things. Also, what we are doing is a lot of recycling of construction material waste. So whatever is the waste in our sites, we are recycling it to make blocks. So there's a lot of recycling going on in various. This is one example I'm giving you. So besides the rating, there are things actually that we are doing at site. So unless we don't do this, we can't really sleep well at night. Let me tell you this honestly, because my family has always pointed a gun at my head for this. And if we don't do this properly, we also will not be able to continue our business.
Right.
Thank you very much. I think we'll call it a day now. The finance minister has started to talk, and I hope she's come with a bag of goodies. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Sanjay, Gitambar. Thanks for being with us, and special thanks to Baman for assisting me. This could never have been possible if it hadn't been for Baman doing the preparation.
Baman is a rock star.
Thanks,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you.
All the best to all of us.
Thank
Yes.
you, Baman.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Mohit.
Bye, Mohit. Bye, Sanjay. Bye,
See you,
Vivek.
Sanjay. See you, Gitambar. Nice
Bye.
catching up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.